welcome back. If you make any sort of dance or club-oriented music, you need something to kind of form the heart of the rhythm, and that is typically a kick drum, some sort of bass drum that sets the tempo for the piece you're playing. So it's really interesting that Ohmforce have come out with their own take on the kick drum, because not only have they made a really interesting kick drum module here with a lot of hands-on playability with these knobs, they've also added two things that you typically want to go with a kick drum, which is sidechaining or ducking in this performer module, along with a performance effect such as a DJ style filter for builds and drops. And they've also added this groove module, which adds a kind of a layer of what they call techno rumble, or that kind of raw sound that you sometimes hear underneath the kick to just give it a little bit more heft and power. Now, this is a pretty long video and I cover a lot, so use the chapter markers down below to skip to the section you want to watch. And of course, don't forget to leave me some questions and comments down below as well if you want to know about these modules or indeed any other things that I cover on the channel. So let's take a quick listen to some audio examples before we go into the deep dive. Okay, so let's take a look at the three modules that are in the Bohm group or ecosystem. At the heart of it is this module here. This is the Bohm kick voice. This creates the kick drum. And if all you want is a variable flexible kick drum, this is all you need. But there are two additional modules here, the performer and the groove, which connect in on the back underneath and add a lot of functionality. The performer gives you a sidechain ducking input here, which you control the depth of using this knob here, and also a performance effect, which you can configure. Now, by default, this is the classic DJ filter, low pass to the left, high pass to the right, but you can change that using the menus. On the right-hand side here, we have the groove. Now, the groove does something interesting, adds sort of a techno rumble to it, controlled by this sort of multi-tap noise generator and delay generator here, where we adjust the volume and type of the effect using these knobs, and then we bring it in and out, as you heard there, using that volume slider. So what that means is, in my configuration today, I actually have Bohm at the end of my signal chain. So what I'm going to do is patch the output of my mixer into the ducking input here on performer. But in this particular case, I'm just going to patch a trigger here from the Oxy1 sequencer into the trigger input. And to take advantage of the groove, I'm just going to patch a clock into this clock input jack over here. So if we start play and we hear the hi-hat, the first thing we notice is, where's the drum sound? Well, we have to bring up the volume. And this is the HZ1 model. In Bohm, there's all different type of drum models. And you can see them here on the screen. They illustrate as you turn the function encoder. And they all have different algorithms underneath them for making the sound. So underneath each of these models, there are various parameters we can configure. So let's go over here to the HZ1 model and you press the function encoder. And now we're able to change what are called variations. And this menu here shows different kind of configurable parameters for each model. And it's different for each model. They're all different under the hood. Let's look first at the performer here. To do that, we can bring in some other sounds. Now we have this sound playing. What if I want to bring in the kick drum? Now here the kick drum and the actual sound from the oscillator are competing with each other. So let's add in some kick drum ducking using the duck control here. And you hear the ducking effect. Till it's very pronounced. Now I can drop the volume on the kick drum and you still hear that pumping in the background. We also have a performance effect, like I mentioned, so let's take a listen to that. You engage it using this button, high pass filter, low pass filter. You can change the way this behaves by pressing the function button here. We can go down to performer menu, which you see here, the performer menu, which you see here. Click that, and we can change the DJ filter and some of the parameters around it. We can also change what goes into the sidechaining. So, for example, say I wanted both the kick drum and the output of the mixer to go through the performance effect. There I can set that to all, which means both the audio coming in out of my mixer and the kick drum will go through this high-pass filter. There you see now we get the kick and the audio from the oscillator going through the high-pass filter. I could change it to kick, and notice how it straight away picks up as soon as I change here. Now the audio from here isn't affected, but the kick drum is affected. Or we can change it that the kick drum isn't affected. So let's just change it to all. You can also just change it to be, for example, low-pass filter. There's also a high-pass filter and a beat and slip roll. These are interesting. So that's how the sidechaining and performer module work. Really, really useful for builds and drops like you might do in techno, or for just transitioning between different parts of a performance, kind of dropping out certain frequencies. Now let's take a look at the groove module. Now the groove module takes the output of the kick and it adds layers of rhythmic elements to it, which are controlled by these knobs here. So let's take a listen. So there's our techno rumble. We can adjust the pitch using this pitch knob. We've a FX there, which in this case is a filter. And it's coming through the sidechaining. As I turn the color, it changes that rumble. Oh, I like this one. There's your classic. And we're away. Instant techno. Now let's take a quick tour through the models, just to give you an overview of how they differ and how you can manipulate them. I'm not going to go through them in exhaustive detail because to do that would make this video about 5 times as long as it already is. So we'll start with the FM2X model. Now this is a 2-operator FM kick, and FM's voices are great for making kick sounds because the classic kick sound is just a sine wave which you're hitting with a very short envelope, and FM is of course based on carrier or modulator, a lot of which are off the sine waves. Let's just take a listen, and we'll bring the knobs down to a sort of a default position here. We haven't even talked about these yet. We'll get to these in a second. We can adjust the ratio. Now this effects can change. For example, we could change it to bring up more bass, or it could become a wavefolder. Wavefolder amount going on there. Now the attack and TRS decay control an envelope that's applied to the modulator. Let's now look at the HZ1 engine, which is quite a flexible one. It's a wavetable-based one. It's one I spend a lot of time playing with, and we were using it there in some of the examples earlier. Nice clean kick sound here. Now we can go from an 808 style curve to a 909 curve here. Bring in a transient. We can adjust the tone on that transient. The color parameter here adjusts the high frequency transients. Now, the OLP4 model here is a 4-operator FM kick, which is from the OPL3 chip, kind of inspired by it. And you're able to use multiple wavetable oscillators in combinations using different algorithms. Now, if you're familiar with any of the classic FM synths, or even synths like the Digitone, for example, they have different ways of combining carriers and modulators in what are called algorithms. And these come from the original Yamaha DX line of synthesizers. So here, for example, we have the 1-2 algorithm, which oscillator 1 modulates oscillator 2. We can adjust the oscillator ratios, the waveforms we're using. For example, I could send these to be a quarter wave and an absolute value of the sine. We can adjust the algorithm. It gets very experimental very quickly. Here's the physical modeled drum. So if you want a bass drum on the floor, a little bit of modulation to sustain, which we'll look at later on in the video, can actually add a little bit of snap to that. The PX3 one is a very versatile model. It's a wavetable oscillator. It's got different wavetables and it's got some samples it can layer in. Let's just get this back to where it should be. And the things we can adjust here are the different wavetables underneath it, what type of layering of effect we're using. You can modulate that wavetable using color, where we're pulling the waves from to create that kick sound. And then the FX can be changed. We have it as bit crusher. For example, we can make it a tube effect. Hard distortion. Another good one is like a decimator. SP6 is another wavetable kick with some digital sounding wavetables. Now this is much closer to your classic drum machine sounds. We have the VXT, which is another wavetable kick oscillator with some transient synthesizer. So again, a very flexible one for like your classic drum sounds. Let's turn the length down there. Let's turn off groove so we can hear it. There's your 909 or 808 curve. We can press the function button here. We can go in and adjust different wavetables underneath. So you can adjust the raw sound of the kick to your liking. Do you want a more aggressive? Do you want a cleaner sine-based kick? So different sine-based wavetables. And here the FX is doing wave folding. Again, we could make it a distortion effect. That's some transient. Oh, that's fun. Now, up till now, we've been just using the Bohm in what's called studio mode, where you're able to do a lot of sound design, you're able to create new kicks, and you're able to experiment with all the different models. But it actually has a couple of other modes it can be used in. One is a song mode, and one is a live jamming mode. Because you might have been wondering, as we've been going through all this, if I create a kick that I really like the sound of, how do I save it? Where are the snapshots or the saving and loading? So let's take a look at snapshots and the different song modes. To start out with, if we long press the function button, we get into the kind of settings menu, which allows us to choose the different types of modes and do some other settings, which I'm not going to go into right now. Studio mode is the default, and that's what we've been using up till now. That's where you're able to choose the different models, change the parameters, craft the sound you want. But if we long press encoder again, we have a choice of live modes. And the live modes are song and jam mode. Bohm has a program which is composed of a series of steps, and each of those steps is a kick sound. So you could imagine a program is a set you're playing, or maybe it's a track you're doing, or a performance you're doing, and each of the kick sounds are corresponding to different phases of your performance. Maybe at the introduction, something a little bit quieter or subdued, then building up during the performance into a very punchy, loud kick, and then finishing off with something glitchy and weird, perhaps. So you can move through those different kick sounds in these song modes. Now, song mode and jam mode are two very different things. Song mode allows you to define your kicks and then create the classic intro, chorus, verse, outro style song description. I particularly like jam mode, and jam mode is where you predefine a series of kicks and then jump between them and use them as you're jamming. So say you're performing live and you want to kind of improvise and you want to kind of go with the flow and bring things up. You don't want to have a fixed sequence of kicks. You use jam mode. Now, of course, you can do this in studio mode too, but if you have a couple of kicks that you've created, sounds you really like the texture and sound of, this is the best way to do it, because you get the flexibility of studio with the ability to save some presets. Let's start jam mode. Now, we can choose different program numbers, program number 2, 1 up to 32. And I think of them as like sets or performances. It's also got 16 steps, which means I can have 16 different kicks in it. So we're going to jam mode. Now look what happens. The display has changed to sort of a pretty cool looking record deck, the old DJ style deck here. And here are all the kicks we have. Now I have a series of kicks that I've predefined. Now to load up a kick, you press the button and you see here the record deck illuminates and is playing. P2 means we're in program 2. Kick 1 is highlighted with the little play icon beside it. Let's take a listen. So there's kick number 1. I'm going to go down to kick 2. Now it's queued up. You see the little pause symbol beside it there. There's kick 2, down to kick 3, kick 4, and you hear they're all very, very different. But how do I save the snapshots? Well, let's go back to studio mode, and I'm back into studio mode, and I press studio. We're back to that mode we started in at the start of the video. So let's create a kick sound, and we're going to save that as a snapshot. Okay, that's a pretty distinctive sound. Let's save it. To save a snapshot, press the hit button and press the function button, and now we are in the save menu. You see step 7 there is empty, so I'm going to save my kick sound there. We can give it a name. I'm pretty lazy. I'm just going to call it kick 7. Very imaginative, I know. Now if we go back over here to our performance menu and we choose jam mode, say we go down here now, load up kick 7. There's kick 7 that we just created earlier. Now, we also could go back here and go into song mode. Now, song mode is a little different in that we actually end up with two DJ decks, back left and right here. So right now in song mode, I've got kick 1 loaded in on the left deck, kick 2 loaded in on the right deck, which means currently I'm going to play kick 1. If I send a trigger into this CV input here called function, then I will actually transition to the kick number 2. So the best way to achieve this is I'm just going to go over here onto PAMs. I'll set up a trigger after 8 steps here on output number 1. Put that there, stick that into function, make sure that's on trigger. Yes, it is. Now we'll hear kick number 1 for 8 steps, and then we'll hear kick number 2. And we're going through 4, 5, 6, 7. And then it cues up kick 6. Now, slot number 8 is empty. So that's the end of our performance. Now, so the way you could think of this is Now we have a way of defining kicks that come in at different phases of a performance, and you could use that to move between different kicks. Now, one thing we haven't talked about are all of the CV input, because all of the functions you see here on these knobs and faders can also be CV controlled. And this gives you some great opportunity for modulation, to build and create different movement in your performances, or to add tension, for example. So let's take a look at some different CV modulation that we can do. Just turn that guy down there so we don't have him in the picture. Now, here's a pretty straightforward kick using the FM2X engine. If I turn up the attack, we get a nice snappy transient. So let's patch in a 5-volt into the attack CV input, which is coming out of palms here, which is on a divide by 2. Now I get a sort of a, on the offbeat, I get a nice snappy attack, which I can also modulate here. Another thing that could be fun to modulate, and I'll take a channel here out of Noise Engineering's Lapsus Os, we could modulate the tone. And we could also use the same output to modulate the FX amount here on the performer. So you see, with a little bit of modulation, you can actually, along with a controller like this, controlling multiple parameters at once gives you like really fun ways like of manipulating filters or different parameters here and building in different phases of your performance. Well, I hope that video gave you some flavor for the power and flexibility and playability of these Bohm modules from Ohmforce. I saw them at Superbooth in 2025 earlier this year, and for me, they were one of the standouts of the show. I knew I really wanted to play them, and I'm so happy I have. You might have noticed, I keep going off doing jams and just playing around on this. It is so hands-on playable. I mean, it's impossible not to get a good sound out of this. And if you like playing any sort of club music or any sort of live music, this is just pure improvisation. You just really can't help yourself. You're creating grooves non-stop on it. If you've any questions, please do let me know down below in the comments. I'll include links to Bohm and also the manual so that you can see how to use it. And as always, hit the old subscribe button down there so that you can keep up to date with the channel. And once again, thanks very much for watching.